Greetings Internet, DDA here, and welcome to a special edition deck profile video. That's right, we have an old school deck profile video here coming off of our win at Ed's Cards and Collectables. Our Lee Sin deck took the championship, took the Riftbound Skirmish championship, and we secured not only our Blitzcrank mat, but also our round 1 bye at the regional championship, if we can get a ticket, which we won't, but hey, it's there. But without further ado, let's check out this list. So let's scan over the list real quick. We can see there we have our chosen champion, Lee Sin, the accelerated Lee Sin for our chosen champion. And you'll notice that this Lee Sin deck, a little bit different than the list that you've seen online. I built it a little bit more low to the ground. You'll notice I don't run Deadbloom, and I actually do own Deadbloom. And I play tested it for a while, but I actually took it out. And I'll go over in the deck profile why we took that out. But we don't actually run the green Lee Sin. I prefer the accelerated Lee Sin. I think the green is a little bit too slow. I would consider this deck a Tempo Aggro deck. Standing up to the Kaises and the Annies meeting with a strong early game push and a strong early game aggression into the mid game. So this deck has been a lot of fun to play, and obviously is stronger than is given credit online, because right now Lee Sin, I think, is considered D tier, highly underrated character. And I'm here to tell you that not only is Lee Sin not D tier, but you can take locals, take Nexus Knights, take skirmishes, and surprise people with the strength of Lee Sin. So let's get into the units. So checking out the units here, you can see we run a pretty standard of 8 turn 1 plays, 8 2-drops. The Poro is very strong. Getting that extra might on defense with the shield is very strong, and with Lee Sin's buff can actually have this unit stand up to 4-drop, stand up to mid-game units, which is really impressive. Impressed me with the card and the strategy with Lee Sin. I guess before we get into the little stuff, I want to talk about why would you play Lee Sin? Why Lee Sin over Sett? Well, Lee Sin gives you buffs for free, so that makes cards that spend the buffs and use the buffs, aka buff payoff cards, much better. So 2 examples of that would be the Sett Brawler and the Udyr, Wildman. So I mentioned in the first Riftbound video that I had that Udyr was my favorite card, and that is because he is cornerstone to this Lee Sin deck. Udyr not getting the limelight that he deserves in this deck. If you start comparing him to the accelerated Lee Sin, you'll see the strength of Udyr actually. So Udyr takes 7, at a minimum, he takes 7 and a power to accelerate him, because you can play him with the buff, with the extra 1, and then ready him with his power. Now, that's at baseline. So at baseline, he's meeting your chosen champion in terms of acceleration power. Now, if you're playing any slower, that's when Udyr becomes better, because Udyr lets you ping units at bases. So, and that is what I found that this Lee Sin deck actually likes to do a lot. It likes to out-card advantage the opponent and actually kill all of their units, both at battlefields and at their base, and then just out-card advantage them and just win the game. And Udyr helps you do that. There are a lot of 2-might units in this game, especially the purple decks. They love their 2-might units. They love their sneaky deck hands and that one that discards and draws. And then, of course, like the Teemo decks that have a weak Teemo left behind after they flip him. There are a lot of decks out there that have 2-might units and stack them at battlefields. Well, Udyr takes advantage of that and lets you defeat those units at the battlefield without risking your own units. So really strong. This guy's been sitting at 3 for a long time for me. I have no need to go down on him. I love him. I think he's very, very strong in this deck. And again, we are looking to make the most use out of Lee Sin's power. We are looking for those buff payoff cards, and Udyr is one of the best ones. Sending Udyr to a battlefield and then giving him ganking gives you full reign on that battlefield. If you have more means to give buffs, you can actually take both battlefields with Udyr by sending him in, then double buffing him to ready him and give him ganking, and then going into the second battlefield. There are many, many crazy combos you can do with Udyr, and once you have 2 Udyrs on the field, that's when you can start killing 4 might units at battlefields, and it just gets crazy from there. So Udyr's number 1 on my list for a Lee Sin card. If you're playing Lee Sin, you need to be slamming a lot of Udyr. Number 2 on my list, a little bit slower, but still strong nonetheless, is Sett Brawler. This card is probably the reason why I dropped Deadbloom, to be honest with you, and felt like I didn't need to have Deadbloom, because I felt like I didn't need Deadbloom to have large might turns, and that's mostly because of Sett. Sett, I've gotten him to 16, I've gotten him to 18 might, I've gotten him to 20 might. He will fight anything on the field. And the crazy thing about Lee Sin and the strategy that you do is you are this like kind of go wide deck because of Lee Sin centered ability to give extra might to your buff units. You are actually kind of a go wide strategy. And, you know, the more units that you have that are buffed, the more you can make use of that centered ability. So you're getting into this stage, into the later stages of the game, where you can send pretty much 30 might at a single battlefield, and then maybe you can send your single set to the other battlefield and take both battlefields simultaneously. Now, he is a little bit slower because he doesn't have Accelerate, so you're going to need something else to ready him if you want to attack the first turn that you play him down. But alone, Sett as a 6 is 12 might, so he has pretty much the highest curve in the game, and he's going to get rebuffed when you conquer, which pretty much always happens. So just a really, really strong card. I'm not seeing a lot of Lee Sins play this. And as a kind of a final point on Deadbloom, the reason I don't play Deadbloom is mostly because of Lee Sin centered. I found that I like to go wide and then kind of send in an army with Lee Sin in the late game. And Deadbloom never lined up with that, because Deadbloom was only 8. And if you just look at like a Wizened Elder, for example, Wizened Elder is 8 with Lee Sin. So like this is a Deadbloom with Lee Sin. So why am I sending a single Deadbloom in and recycling 2 when I could just play Lee Sin centered, go wide, protect myself from Call of the Week, and then just take over the battlefield? It's very, very strong. So back into the early game plays, like I said, we run 8, and this is a kind of a go wide deck. So I've actually considered going to 9. I've actually considered upping the Clockwork Keeper for the extra card draw and just going to 9, because again, I really, really like the go wide in Lee Sin. It's very, very strong. And then for our 3 drops, we actually only run 3, and we're just running 3 first mate. And this guy is just a powerhouse in body, just so strong. Being able to ready your units and send them directly into a battlefield, very strong. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to need a combo card with Sett Brawler. So this is one of the key ones. And then often, you know, in the early and mid game, you can also just kind of throw down multiple of these accelerated, you know, ready your units and take multiple battlefields to get you those early points that you need to set up a win in the later stages of the game. Really strong card. I've been seeing a lot of body decks run 3 of this, and it is justified. We are on the 1 Wizened Elder and then the 3 Kianas. Kiana is just so strong, giving you that option of either channeling runes or drawing. Most often I am drawing, but there are situations where I have a good hand. Like let's say I have like Udyr and some combat tricks like Defies and things like that. And I know I'm going to need to go up to 8 or 9 runes next turn. So I know that when I push, I also have a few combat tricks that I can play. That's when Kiana shines as well. Kiana just very, very strong with the deflect, But Wizened Elder not having a power cost is very relevant. And like I said earlier, he is an 8 might when attacking with Lee Sin. He is 6 with a buff. Very, very strong. Just a strong beater. I have actually considered going up on Wizened Elder because, again, this go wide deck, I've considered going from 4 drops to 5. It's very strong. It's a very strong card, honestly, and I wouldn't knock anyone for playing 2 of it. Now, I already talked about Sett Brawler. I do want to also highlight how strong Sett is with Reaver's Row, and how strong this deck is with Reaver's Row in general. When you defend here, you may move a friendly unit to base, so that protects your Sett, and most often, you always have to think about Sett on the crackback. Like, yeah, Sett can pretty much take any battlefield you want. There is no, and actually, on one of my Nexus nights that I played, I was playing an Ahri deck, and they had stacked, like, Taric and, like, double Ahri and stuff like that on a single battlefield. They had, like, 25 or 26 might or something like that, and with the Sett and the Lee Sin, I was able to get over 30 might and take out the entire battlefield. This guy, like, you're not doing that with a Deadbloom, and I just don't understand why I'm not seeing Lee Sins play this guy. I highly recommend him. He's very, very strong. But you have to think about the crackback, and Reaver's Row helps you do that. Zhonya's helps you do that. Or you can always just play a first mate and then send him back to base and just ready him and send him back to base. I do that a lot. I always try to protect my Sett because I know that there's pretty much nothing on the field that they can throw down that Sett is not going to be able to overcome. So I also talked about the 3 Udyrs. The 2 damage is just so important, and has made me consider other cards because the 2 damage is so strong on Udyr. I've considered things like Warwick. I've considered things like Cannon Barrage to combo with the Udyr. But the Udyr with the 2 damage alone is good enough that I don't feel like it needs any other support. It's good enough, and like I said, he's on curve for Accelerate. So, like, just a 6 Accelerate for 7 and a power, like, that's on curve for Accelerate. At a minimum, he's on curve for Accelerate. And then any slower, like you playing any slower with the stuns or the ganking, then he just becomes better and better and better. We do play a single Lee Sin centered in the deck. I've thought about going up to 2, but being that you want a certain board state for him to be good, I think the 1 as the chosen champion and the 1 in the main deck is good. Like I said, because like we have like basically 4 cards that are 7 a power and Accelerate for 6 might. So he, if I don't combo with it, I have Udyr to fall back on, and but he's been good in the main deck as a secondary copy to the chosen champion. And then we also have Misfortune, which is a recent add, and actually, when I dropped Deadbloom, my final Deadbloom drop was for this Misfortune, and this Misfortune was so clutch and won me so many games and I think in the finals or in the top 4, one of the 2, being able to ready champions like Sett and units, being able to ready Lee Sin to get double buffs. So, like, you can think at a minimum, you can ready your legend and get a double buff. You can ready another unit. But most often, I'm actually readying a rune to be able to play a combat trick on my opponent's turn. So I can fully tap out to Accelerate this Misfortune, and then I can send her in, conquer a battlefield, and then untap 1 rune and have enough for a Defy or something like that for a combat trick. So really, really strong here, just showing the power of Misfortune. Just a great combo card and fits perfectly in this mid-range tempo deck. Now let's go over the spells. So going over the gears and spells here, I'm currently at 17 non-units, which I think is pretty standard. So some of the things you'll notice that I want to talk about, you'll notice that I'm playing Seals of Strength. I think that's really important for Lee Sin in this deck list that I'm playing currently. I'm very heavily focused on orange power with the Udyrs, the Kianas, the Setts, and everything. So getting down a seal in the early game is very important for your push in the mid game, because as I've talked to some of my local players and some of the newer players, the thing you need to understand about seals, why you're not seeing it in every list, why it's not broken, is actually it takes 3 turns for you to see the value of a seal, because the turn that you play it, you net 0. So you actually use it for value on turn 2, the second turn after you play it, but you don't actually see that value until the 3rd turn, because you're saving a power on the second turn, but you don't actually gain that value until the 3rd turn, because that's when you would have lost that rune, but you have an extra rune because you saved the power cost. So it's a little bit difficult to understand, but what you need to understand is that runes and seals specifically are only strong when played early, and they're only strong when you use them 2 or 3 times after you immediately play them. So that's why we're only on 2 of it, but it is strong enough, like with all the power costs that we have in the deck. We have the challenges, we have the sabotages, we have Dragon's Rage, and then we have all the units that I mentioned in the unit section that use orange power. We have a lot of orange power in this deck, and it's great. The thing I want to talk about is the spread of charms and Dragon Rages. Dragon Rage actually won me my top 4 match. Very, very strong card, and I'm actually going to go up on Dragon Rage, I think, because I'm struggling into Sett right now because he kind of is able to go wider than I am with his buffs and just keeping his units around. And Sett, against Sett, it's a blowout card. The thing that you need to be thinking about with Dragon's Rage is that it can be defied. So in the green matchup, you need to be very careful about when you're blowing your Dragon's Rage, if you're playing it at all against green, or saving it for like when the risk is worth it of them defying, or saving it for when you have your own defy to defy their defy. But things like that, things you need to think about with Dragon's Rage. Very strong card, one of the strongest signature spells in my opinion, because it is a 2-for-1 and only 4 energy. So just very strong. Charm was at 3 for me, and I don't think I played a good charm the entire tournament. My battlefields are actually heavily based on movement and limiting movement. So, and then I have the Dragon's Rage as well, and then I have the First Mates. So I'm playing around with movement a lot, and I'm limiting my opponent's actions. Charm is good for tempo, though. It's good to get you that last point just by, if they like throw a big unit on there like a Mundo, you just move the Mundo off. Or if you want to use it for like a tempo swing where like they have a little guy, it's their only unit, and then you just want to charm their guy into your battlefield, so that way you can kill their unit and like really take away their swing next turn. So it's good, but I think I might go down on it a little bit in favor of maxing out on Defies, for example. Defy, the third one's in the sideboard, and it came in often. The third Defy came in most often, so that's how you know you need to probably go up on Defies. But I chose to go on for a 2 Defy, 2 Challenge, 2 Sabotage setup, mostly for the purple decks, because the purple decks are, like, you can defy a lot of their stuff, but, like, the Rebukes you can't defy, the Time Walks you can't defy. There's a lot of stuff that you can't defy, and that's when Sabotage comes in. So that's why I chose to go 2 and 2, but I think I am going to go up to the third Defy in the main, but that's worthy to note there. I was also on 2 Challenge main, which is great for tempo, because, again, you can take out their units, and then they can't really get you on the crackback. Really strong here. And it's also good against something like Viktor, who likes to play units in base and just kind of let them sit there until the stratagem. Or Sett, who is also like, you'll get them to spend the buff, and then you can finish off the unit in the base after he activates his ability. So stuff like that. Challenge was really, really strong, and 2 was in the main. We also have 2 Zhonya's Hourglass, which is, again, great for tempo. This is a tempo aggro deck, so makes sense. You know, getting that unit save, and, you know, this card has weird timing, so I suggest if you're a competitive player, you really look into how you can most utilize Zhonya's Hourglass, because there is a lot of skill expression with Zhonya's, to be honest with you, which is just awesome because it's such a great representation of the video game, the MOBA. So there's a lot of skill expression here that you can do with timing windows and things like that. So it's important to know those. I won't go over those here, but Probably going to go up on this as well, just because it's so cornerstone in both the Kai'Sa and the Sett matchup. With Annie, it's less important because Annie plays with movement more than Kai'Sa does. Kai'Sa kills a lot of your stuff, so the Zhonya's really helps against Kai'Sa if they can kind of blow their load and tap out on removal when you have that Zhonya's to save your units. And then I chose to run Discipline over On Guard. A lot of Lee Sins and a lot of Master Yi's are running like the 3 Discipline, 3 On Guard. On Guard makes sense for Master Yi because he's going to want to defend and attack alone a lot of times. But, you know, Lee Sin is all about going wide, so I felt like the On Guard wasn't hitting a lot, and plus I like just the cantrip, the ability for Discipline to draw me a card. I prefer that, so that's why I ended up cutting On Guard for some of the more control-y options, like the Sabotage and the Defies, and the Challenges and things like that. I feel like I get more mileage out of those than just a simple buff trick that I can play. I'm buffing enough, and I don't need extra power. What I really need is tricks to stop my opponent. So the base is pretty simple. You know, we have the Monastery of Harana. Yeah, Monastery of Harana. That is the best Lee Sin base, of course. We have to consider, like, what does Lee Sin do the best? Lee Sin buffs the best. The easiest deck to buff. So you're going to use this base better than any other leader in the game, better than any other legend. So this is our best base. We should win this game, and you want to draw as much as possible and go wide. So, you know, keep that in mind. You will use this base, like, better than Sett, and often, like, because I was afraid of playing this base against Sett, but often they won't use it because they don't want to spend their buff. They want to save their unit. So, and against the less experienced Setts, you might actually get them in a bad position if you get them to spend their buffs and then get to take out their units free of charge. So keep that in mind. I was afraid to use this against Sett, but I think it's a lot better than I thought. And then the other 2 bases that we have are 2 movement-based bases. We have Reaver's Row and Vilemal's Lair. Vilemal is, of course, for the purple decks to stop them from flashing, stop them from, you know, using their fighter flights and things like that. So Vilemal's Lair, very, very strong against purple, and just very strong because, like I said, this deck shines at the crackback and taking out your opponent's units. So locking them in this battlefield is really strong for you. And then the Reaver's Row is most useful against the Watcher decks. Any deck that plays Watcher hates to see Reaver's Row because they like to kill all of your units with their Watcher play. They're going to tap out. They're going to recycle 2. They're going to want to kill 2 or 3 of your units. Well, you're going to save your best unit with Reaver's Row. And it's very strong with, like, Sett. Sending Sett into Reaver's Row has been really strong. And, because this deck can go wide and because this deck can generate more might than pretty much any other deck, I think, Reaver's, like, having the unit, like, your opponent saving the unit is not as bad. Plus, we have things like Dragon Rage that play around with movement, right? So if they're sending their units back to their base, they're holding another base, that gives us a lot of techie options that we can use with Dragon Rage, which is why I like the 2 movement-based bases to restrict movement and allow for extra movement, and that way that we can utilize the Dragon's Rage a little better and a little bit more consistently. I really like it. Before I go over some learnings and changes to the deck, I do want to go over the sideboard. First, I want to talk about the Unyielding Spirit card, which is definitely an amazing meta call with all the Kai'Sa and Annie decks running around. I also use this card against Viktor. Viktor decks are running, sometimes they're running Riptide, sometimes they're running Singularities. We can't defy those. And this deck can't win wall very easily because it is running 7 and 5. So it can't win wall very easily. So the Unyielding Spirit, along with these Seals of Strength, is very, very strong for 1 cost here. Being able to protect you from Falling Stars, Acathian Rains, and anything that you could imagine. Just really, really strong meta call card here. I've thought about going to 3 of this in the sideboard, but at 2 it seems so perfect. We have the 3rd challenge in the sideboard as well. for the really, really like fast, low to the ground decks when we're fighting over battlefields really early, and I need to establish a stronghold early. That's what the challenge is for. If they're flooding and they're really kind of like burning their hand, and I know that a single removal spell will kind of take over for me, that's when I know I need to add my third challenge. We got 2 Primal Strengths. This is only for Ahri. These 2 copies in here are literally only for Ahri. Ahri's the only deck that I found, and I've struggled with generating more might to take over their battlefields with. It's the only deck. Sometimes I struggle a little bit against Viktor, but that's only when I don't see the set. If I see set, I can pretty much overtake any deck. But Ahri is an exception to that, and that is what the Primal Strength is for, because Ahri is not good at, like, when you have one really, really, really big unit come in, Ahri kind of crumbles, and you can take over with that Primal Strength. We have the 3rd copy of Sabotage for the purple decks. We have the 3rd copy of Defy for the Order decks and any other deck that Defy is really relevant in. Blue decks, nah, not so much. Mostly purple and red. Red, Defy is good against red. Defy is good against, the Order decks as well. And then we have a single copy of Arena Bar. Now, Arena Bar is a card that I actually tested out a lot in here. And I had 2 copies of Arena Bar main for a very long time for an extra payoff for Sett and an extra payoff for Udyr. It's really strong, and I love it, to be honest with you, because it lets you play and ready Udyr on curve. So you can play and ready Udyr on 6 to attack with. Very, very strong to do that. Arena Bar is really great. And in any deck, against any deck that's grindy, like an Ahri or like a Leona or a Misfortune or something like that, a dazzling deck, a deck that's going to go long and late and play control against you, Arena Bar is just very strong to be able to double use those set powers, to be able to double use those Udyr powers. And like I said, play Udyr on curve, because like you might think Udyr, like Arena Bar puts you behind. It does put you behind, but it also could put you ahead with that extra turn to accelerate that Udyr. So keep that in mind. So now I do want to talk about some changes to the deck. Some changes. I have 2 challenge main right now. I'm actually going to drop 1 challenge to the sideboard for the 3rd Defy. I think that's fair because I found I was taking out challenge a lot in favor of Defy. So I think going up to 3 Defy and then down to 1 challenge main is fine. I mentioned in the earlier in the video that Charm was not good for me. It didn't hit the way that I wanted to, and I misplayed a few times with Charm, and that's my own fault, but I think it just highlights how this card is risky sometimes. Like if you're charming their units into your units, if they have any trick whatsoever, they could really blow you out with it. So I'm actually going to drop 1 Charm for the 3rd Zonias, and I'm going to drop a 2nd Charm for a 3rd Dragon's Rage. That's what we're going to be. So we're still at 3 movement cards. We're not changing, like a lot of green decks play 3 Charm, right? So we're still at 3 movement cards. Just 2 of those movement cards are going to be Dragon's Rage. I really love Dragon's Rage in a set. I really love Dragon's Rage in a Teemo. I really love Dragon's Rage. I think it's a very strong card. Into the right colors. You just have to be careful about playing against blue and green. Blue with retreat. They could possibly do some weird things with fight or flight. Purple decks can. And then green with the defies. But if you start with the sabotage or have a defy in your hand to protect the Dragon's Rage, you could just 2 for 1 and blow them out and just completely win a game off of a Dragon's Rage alone. I love this card. So yeah, that is the deck profile video. So I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, took down my local skirmish. Was a well-fought day. A lot of good players came out. And I think Lee Sin is strong, guys. Like, not D tier. Just play a little bit of different cards. You don't need 3 Deadblooms. Just play your misfortunes, play your sets, play your Udyrs, and take your local championship. So if you like this video, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. We're going to be coming out with a lot more Riftbound videos. We have all the matches recorded that we recorded from the Skirmish. So I'll be putting up a lot of those matches so you can all see how the deck plays and see what the road to the championship was. And as always, turn your dial to Random Number Gaming.